Mwen Menm Ek Sa. I hope you're enjoying the conversation so far. Let me tell you something, behind the scenes, even hotter than what's happening on camera. But this topic, I know you guys you will want to get involved. So we look forward to your comments on social media. We'll be reading your posts to see exactly how you feel about it and where exactly you are in the topic that we're about to bring up. So we're talking identifying with African descent and Caribbean ethnic diversity. Now, you know, for some of us, we hear all the time, take me back to Africa. You understand? People like to say these things. You hear, especially in the Rastafarian community, they talk about wanting to go back home. All right, no problem. We talk about diversity and we keep the conversation very small. You know, we talk about it, like I tell you all, some conversations are hot behind the scenes and we shriin, but on paper, we don't want to say the real things. Why is it in 2022 we still have restrictions on hairstyles in the workplace? We still have restrictions on hairstyles in school.
And churches.
And churches, right? Why is that?
Think of that.
Yeah,
yes.
I've never realized that.
Yes.
That is very true.
Why is certain music seen as inappropriate and dirty? You understand? My favorite segment, the new segment, you understand?
Yeah.
Why is certain segments seen that way, but then the others, you know, that will bring about the same kind of dance and behavior because we see the generations before us doing it, it's all right. Why in 2022 are we having this discussion on colorism and that big separation between gaps in St. Lucia? Why is that still happening? Young people, let me hear y'all. Why?
Because it's in us.
It's in us?
Yes, of course, it's in us. We're
But
a
that's not like
black
a disease,
it's pretty much viral. The thing is that we kind of got that Eurocentric vision for ourselves because we're a black-led country still enforcing those anti-black policies and ways of looking at people against our own selves. In fact, we even hold ourselves to those very same standards where you would figure maybe I will not wear an afro to a professional setting because that will make me look like I'm crazy, right? So it's basically being implanted in us. In fact, as our dear friend, Mr. Bomba.
That's our dear friend, not y'all pointing to a cushion.
Well,
let me move the drinks out.
Yeah,
the way.
He said to
King of reggae that day.
He said to
Zoom on that,
emancipate.
I have all these records.
He said to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery, and I guess that's the part that we're still struggling with, where we struggle with classism and colorism here.
Yeah, but it's a double-edged sword, you know. Remember, Jim Crow concept. You pin people's differences. That's how you treat the slaves. That's just how it works. So you tall, you ought to laugh at the short one. You fat, you ought to laugh at the thin one. That's whatever that's just basically the behavior. Now, you look at that, and you find the red man, a real dark guy, maybe feeling into the community space. You'll still look down on the mulatto, the lighter skin. So it's a double-edged sword in that sense. That's a mommy's boy, that's an inside boy. That's actually a perspective that's not as grandeur, but you must admit, anybody who's actually observed it, there is a slight discrimination. There must be. Always.
How?
As in from the darker skin or from those who themselves feel more culturally sound. They feel as though they more in terms of the depth of what it is to be black.
Like to be St. Lucia.
And they will look at like perhaps a lighter skinned person, and not to say that in grandeur, but they do feel as though that person is more coddled. That person is different in a sense where it's not a great discrimination.
Say it if your chest. A lot of black people feel like they have more rights to be black than other black people.
Yeah, very much so.
Yes.
That's a truthful thing. And you find that they would treat them differently. You'll watch children play. They might even be looked at differently from an overall sense. Sometimes they behave completely differently, and you're not wrong. Flip the script. Those who have money or those who might be in a better situation might look down on those who might feel themselves more St. Lucian.
So
I understand because
it could be an equal divide. I'm just saying.
There's I don't know if you'll know this thing when people say Oh my God.
Body,
I'm
look
saying it
at
with my chest. Where people say that the Caucasians of the black community are the African Americans, and that is because people are saying they are less cultured than any other black people in the world. You know, you look at people in the Caribbean, Africans themselves in that diaspora they're more tuned into the culture, and it's almost like the African Americans, or I would say maybe Africans who've migrated into other spaces where the black culture is not as predominant. They struggle. You know,
But
so I
Gio,
understand.
but look at even what happens on Twitter, and you would know, like, a lot of black people, a lot of West Indian black people feel like they're the gatekeepers of blackness and our culture, because they look at every time somebody who is of Caribbean descent, and you know that's a big argument there, they like to call them Caribbeans. Right? Yes. And they say, oh, you know, these people whose parents are from the Caribbean, but they're not really. And they make a big issue about it. There are, I do understand what you're saying. What you're saying, yeah.
I just want French or whatever, you settle.
Yeah.
And then you just light skin. You just lighter skin. That's the colorism argument.
Yeah.
But the darker solution, who's been here in terms of their family lineage for so long, they look at you almost like an outsider.
Yeah, like that's man.
You born in St. Lucia just like you go into the same school as them, but
so
what were you saying?
Yeah, so I wanted to clarify. You were saying that African Americans feel that they're the gatekeepers of black culture?
No, West Indian black people, specifically, if you're on Twitter, you see it all the time. A lot of West Indian black people are highly critical of West Indians who live overseas.
Now,
they call them Caribbean.
In my opinion, it's kind of the opposite.
Yeah.
Because I think, like online, like African Americans have more of a presence. They have a louder voice, and when they will go up and say something like, okay, especially the people that will say, oh, my grandmother was Jamaican, so I'm Jamaican, right? So they will come and say something like they speak like on behalf of Jamaicans, but they're saying something that's completely wrong. So that's where I would say that West Indians, who live in the Caribbean, might be right to defend their culture, because it kind of feels oppressive when people who are misinformed are trying to represent you.
But why do you take that as oppression instead of people just wanting to be part of what we have, what we're so proud of? I'm sure sometimes, especially us we're talking pop culture, and especially with us in trying to... Especially us... Mwen Menm Ek Sa. Especially us... embracing who we are and loving who we are. A lot of people want to tap into that, so sometimes they may get it wrong. My issue here is the approach when they get it wrong. It's never a lovingly, hey y'all, that's not where it is, or that's not how it is. It's always but just so where you come from, you want to come and take our culture as your own.
Even as
it's never a moment to teach.
Yeah.
We need to use those as moments to teach these people.
That is something that we need to recognize.
Us a watered down version, because you know, when Labor Day is I'm sorry, Labor Day will not be the carnival parade that you get authentically in the Caribbean.
Yes.
So I mean, it's just a time to teach instead of looking at it as, well, you're kind of not, and let's just not insult.
Even when you look at...
1 second, Joshua.
Hold on. Like, even when you look at the United States, let's go back to the 1940s, children were actually placed with $2 in front of them, a white and a black. And
why you go all back there? There's a video now trending with a Spanish lady doing this in 2022.
That even shows that, we as black people are not seen as beautiful. We as black people are not seen as that. So when we now try to identify with that culture or that identity or that heritage, we are trying to show support for that. Black people will always be seen as minorities no matter where you go in the entire world. So we are now trying to show support for our West Indian culture.
I'm not a minority in St. Lucia.
We are the minority in St. Lucia because St. Lucia is predominantly black.
1 second. We talking... minorities, rich on minorities.
No, but
Joshua
it shows
say
about
black
culture.
people will always be a minority anywhere in the world. Gio is saying in St. Lucia he's not a minority. So let's stay home. Just now, let's stay home, right? Gio, in which part of St. Lucia are you not a minority? And is there any part of St. Lucia that you do feel like a minority?
That's a good question.
Well, I mean, honestly, anywhere I go, I feel like St. Lucia is predominantly black people. I feel comfortable anywhere in St.
Okay.
Lucia. That is me.
That's
Some
how
people
everybody
would say
feels it?
some
Yeah, but in St. Lucia we
I
are
have a
predominantly
perspective
black.
on
That's how
Right.
we see it.
communities in the north of the island.
Not
Sorry?
We shall not name names. We shall not
Not
name
gated
names.
community.
Yes.
We shall not name names.
I'll be honest, I don't know if it's eloquence or anything, but
Yes.
I've never been
Nah.
treated any differently in the
Okay.
presence of anybody like that.
What you said, light skin?
I just don't feel. I don't know. I don't feel no different because.
Oh, okay,
I
lighter
feel
skin, no
entitled.
problem.
But that's the thing.
perspective,
That's the
right?
thing.
Sure, what's up?
So do you see your privilege? Do you ever see privilege
Of
as
course.
someone who's lighter skin?
Alright, I don't know. Like, I'll be honest. People say that to me personally in my own mirrors and think I find I look in brown skin. I don't know what people consider that.
Not I find I
I
look
mean,
in.
personally, I just don't. I'm not impressed.
What they call? What's her name?
Dolly.
Dolizal?
Like,
Yes.
like apart from that, I mean, I in the presence of maybe people who are lighter than me, yeah. But I don't really, I don't feel that way. I don't really feel that.
I
way.
mean,
Okay.
I'll say
So-
I kind of feel privileged, not just, well, we don't go through the racism that, let's say, African Americans will go through. That's literally at their doorstep.
Not
we
Joshua
don't
picking up.
necessarily
Joshua, you
face that
experience
in St.
racism?
Lucia. The bigger issue is
When he's done.
colorism. I
When he's
would
done.
say. I said necessarily.
Hey.
necessarily.
Wait,
The
so-
biggest issue here is colorism. I wouldn't say racism, but colorism falls under racism.
Okay, before we turn the page, I have a perspective on racism. So you said that you feel comfortable anywhere in St. Lucia. There are some places that are predominantly descendants of Indians, right? And they might treat you differently. In some senses, it might be for the better. In some senses, it might be for the worse. For example, there's a community where I overheard a conversation. A woman is saying that whoever says she's from Forestier, and a girl is a neg. She's a neg, and then when she finished, she's saying she's from Forestier.
But
So
look,
she cannot be
Forestier
from
people go
Forestier.
talk
I
now.
say,
Forestier.
and I mean, I'm a dark skin who moved into Forestier, but I'm saying, first of all, you're referring to somebody as a neg, and secondly, because the person is black, they cannot be from Forestier. Like, what? That's a,
You don't understand why? Like I can bring it as a mom, to a light skinned daughter.
Oh.
I know we don't talk about the isms in St. Lucia a lot because we feel far removed. However, in our St. Lucian society, y'all, these do exist and they're prevalent. I could be with my daughter and somebody would assume she's not mine.
Yeah.
Naturally, right? You see situations where people naturally always ask, the father is a white man? That's what they ask all the time. However, you see different parts of my family where persons are lighter skinned. You have families where one sibling might be light skinned and the other is dark skinned, and they start to tell you, is a boating na there? They tell you all kinds of things that going on because in their heads, I don't know how they feel melanin works, but as if it must always appear a certain way.
It's the same remnants of Jim Crow. It's just
We hair girls, and you know, as a beautiful dark-skinned girl, sometimes we get the backhanded compliment that we're pretty for dark-skinned girls, because we still push in our society that attractiveness is most times coming from how we see it most likely with lighter skinned women. That's ways we see it all the time. We go on the shelves. I went to a certain store to buy a doll for my daughter and I asked them, where are the dark skinned dolls? The man said, what do you mean? What is that?
Barbie
I
not
said,
black, yeah?
a dark skinned
Barbie
doll
not black?
like those.
They have
He
black
said,
ones.
we've never saw
No.
that. I said, and y'all have no issue
It's
with
still not
that?
imprinted.
Because we're okay with these things that exist in our society. So I see us bringing it out into the wider world. But home, y'all, what are we promoting at home?
But that's what I was just saying about. I grew up in the United States. I grew up in Canada. I grew up in a state that most people consider racist. I grew up in Texas. I've experienced that. So when I can say about black people are seen as a minority, it's because I went through that problem. Though St. Lucia is predominantly black, you still have a sense of racism according to how black
It's
you
true.
are.
well, yeah, color.
Right?
Yeah, that's colorism.
That is
But when I say
colorism.
I mean like extreme
You're already
racism,
wrong.
you know, like what hit home recently,
That-
you know, both of them and all of that.
Exactly, but both of us from
that
Texas.
magnitude would have happened here.
Yeah.
I'm just,
Exactly.
that's my opinion. I don't feel like
It won't happen here, but if we,
But you know the police is still going to hold somebody and beat them down here. Now that person
But it's
is
over
not
race.
like you.
But not over race.
it's not over
Wait,
race.
hey, pause. Did you just say not over race?
No, I was just about to correct
We're not
you.
getting
It's
into the
color- it's
details of it
colorist.
there because you know
It
legal.
could be. And I personally seen it to the darkest.
But wait, but have y'all ever seen a lot of the aggression, right, by persons in authority? Do y'all still see? Do they keep that same energy with lighter skins or the Caucasian
But that
persons
is
on
still based
island?
on
Is that
colorism
energy still
because
kept?
black people are meant to be seen as
The
friends.
people who like the skin are like the Syrian people. That's like the people you're not ever really gonna do that to.
Why not?
Because they seem as though they have money. Isn't that how our culture promotes it?
Space and their social space does not entertain that
So
type
you
of
think that has something to do with it?
No,
The other
it
thing-
doesn't just have.
So
It doesn't entertain that. type
But that
of-
has always been a structure.
Classism for sure. Yeah, yeah.
Is that okay? For example, a tourist, you wouldn't want to do something to a tourist because, okay, what if they're from the United States?
Yeah.
And you know how they get when one of their own,
Yeah.
it is killed in
That's
another.
Yeah, we don't want to
No,
upset
but
the
those
US.
who live locally, we're talking about persons Caucasians who live in St. Lucia.
Maybe if the embassy or you something else.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, a lot of the
Or they
people
could
who
have
are
very
here,
well
they
been
might
here.
very well be protected. But I could still speak to the aggression that you were saying. I've personally seen it directed to the darker skin.
Right.
Maybe perhaps they've committed a crime
On
just
the
to
other-
say.
Yeah.
I will agree that,
yes,
Them
I
would
can
probably
agree
I
to
will
that,
agree
yeah.
that after you are
Yeah.
the kind of worse it is for you here.
Not-
But I'm just saying the magnitude of what happens.
You know what I really don't like?
It is.
The
yeah,
fact-
it's- but
But even incorporating visitors and tourists like you mentioned, when you black, you're not seen as a tourist first there.
Not at
In St.
all.
Lucia, you have to talk with an accent, as if a tourist must be white, right?
Internally
You-
and externally.
The stereotype
Yes,
is,
the stereotype.
yeah, stereotypes. come out.
Now I want to know.
I blame the hotel industry, but we're not gonna.
We're not getting there, Gio, Avete, Mwen Menm Ek
Not
Sa.
yet, but that is the next episode. Eh?
My question is, at what point are we going to change those rules that are so oppressive? Especially those that relate to the way, like I mentioned in the intro, the way we relate in public spaces, our hair. You know, at what point are we going to change that, and what is it going to take to change it? Why can't the Caucasian girl come to school with her hair in one and her long ponytail, but then the black girl, you know, with the type 4C hair, goes to school with her hair in one, but the big afro puff, and they tell you, hey, make sure your hair is neat, you have to twist it. When are we gonna get
and
past
there was-
that?
Change is something
Some
that
rules
extremely
were so crazy
complicated.
that I think some schools you had to have a ribbon in there.
Yes, you have to have
Yes,
that
yes,
ribbon
yes,
must have
up to
been.
now.
Whose institutions are these? These are the same institutions, alright. SMC, SJC, whatever we deem as
Wait
the
a
top standard.
what are you saying?
Right?
Oh, I was just trying to figure out.
I'm just saying,
religious?
people
Owned by the
people typically do that, but yet still, those are some of the same institutions that they press when they have to understand these institutions are at one point colors. They basically go according to their own status quo developed by them. It is not your institution. In other words, no matter how much you protest in some of these spaces, because of the institution and how old it's been and the degrees of prejudice and the degrees of Eurocentric consciousness.
Hello, but that's what we're talking about, emancipation. Emancipation cannot only be around the what we can see as big issues. These are things that still happen in our everyday life. So you tell your son, you have a child who's getting out of infant school, getting out of the little preschool, sorry, they have to go into a school, or you must cut your hair.
Yeah.
Why? I'm still waiting to figure out why. Apart from
And
cleanliness.
the other thing is that people with a particular type of hair,
Right.
Yeah, the real curly.
With like the
Straighter
the
textures.
hair.
Okay.
Yes.
Like especially the boys, it could be very untidy, it could be dry.
Yeah.
No mark whatsoever.
No
and
matter
they can
what.
slide with it,
Absolutely.
right? But those with the curlier hair, they can't grow their hair too long.
Yeah, I don't know. It's something that
Remember
I don't
back in the day, they
like.
used to have the Gala Rush Me hairstyle. That's what they call that.
Yeah.
And the Gala Rush Me boy, when they had the afro, they had the flat
Every
top,
time
and
after
principals used to
school.
make
Yeah.
them go to the barber and shave and then come back to school because they didn't like to see that hairstyle.
Every time after school, you would. Now, I'm a Samaritan. I went to SMC.
Sure.
You go to the bathroom and then you see everybody just have a afro, you know.
Yes.
Now we feel like, okay, now is the time we can
You can be
a
yourself.
black boy.
Yes.
We can really express because we were before we. Let me tell you, you have to be in the bathroom dabbing that down. So okay, they're gonna catch me today. But after school, you have to, you know, you want to.
But
why do we even have to do that?
To wrap up on a positive note, I must say, and you guys, if you look at the cast who's there on Mwen Menm Ek Sa, you'll see just how everybody is able to be themselves so comfortably. And that's things you would see people walking down the road before, a little black girl with her locks, before you would assume she Rastafarian automatically, eh? But now, but now you understand that that's just expression, y'all, and that has a lot to do with what emancipation means too. And that's why we do appreciate those who had to go through so much to get us to this point that we get to enjoy it and to live as freely as we do now, but we still have work to do.
Yes.
We'll come back and tell you what else we have to chat about when we come back. We do have at this time an emancipation piece from Ethan Fletcher. We'll see you in a while.
Do we actually think that we're really free? You see, that's a question. 'Cause I mean, eventually, will it ever be a point where we dig a little deeper to probably find the next book in the chapter, to maybe see if there's really more to the story? I mean, we've never looked beyond belief, but say we know truth, but still not set free. So we sing Bob Marley so proudly that after all these years you'd figure you niggas still can't emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. I mean, do you even understand your capacity? Mine's as ruthless as the ocean. You reach your limits, yet you shine. Your mind's entwined in the line of divine. The true vine roots deep in your souls. So who else could stop me, if not me, if I decided to see this world? But I've glimpsed it. Life. And it's not meant to be perfect, it's meant to be fulfilled. So make a mistake and then another one, and another one. Then shake the dust off your feet, because who knows what tomorrow brings. It's like life teaches a test for tomorrow's lesson, but without the right information, what's the point of the next day's session? I mean, do you even understand what happens in this world that we live in? Apart from what they make us see on TV, then from young in school, they write it in our books, still just the way that we see. They make it mandatory. All that dirty laundry constantly got our minds brainwashed with no gain. So we just buy lies and then we're sold. But I've been told to stop being told how to think and do it yourself. See the true colors, taste the rainbow, then follow. Because on the other side there is gold. But we die for lack of knowledge. But we can live and learn. But for those who reject knowledge, where are we even going? I mean, is that why they say, hey, let's starve them? So now we hunger to be fed lies, and if we don't hear, they make these death hand signs, hatred in their red eyes against you. You're under again jitsu, and what's worse is that you don't flinch too. So as the hand clicks, the clock ticks. In time when baited, these people become weak, and then they start to fear truth because of its reality. So instead of facing it, we look away and prefer to speak positivity. Now that says a lot to me. That we rather make our beds behind these bars with the keys in our pockets, then we lock it and look, we say it's raining outside. If I get wet, I might get sick, so why risk it? Did that sink? But here's some food for thought. You're not free because you were let out of the jail cell, then given the liberty to walk the prison courts. No, that's plain freedom. So crack your skull open, get those thoughts rolling, and freedom. Because the truth is, people don't love the idea of freedom because it ain't free. Just put them in a box, living comfortably. Throw them in a pen, give them what they think they need. Because these sheeple, they just hate the idea of a slavery. So they play we. I mean really, How can you call freedom being taken, then accept charity like it was freely given? Freedom is not disintegration through exploitation. How is that even accepted as a normal way of living? Look, if I said here's your independence, but still have you dependent, that's not redemption, that's deception. Because the road to liberation is through rebellion, only with obedience to Yah. And if only we got that revelation, we could start a revolution. If only we had more vision and more support to our brethren, we could build a nation. If only we could settle our disputes, but instead we run to outsiders who take our shit, then come riders. A couple chains to downside us, then bind us. I mean, I know we love to shake our ass, but can someone please take these shacks off our feet so we could actually learn how to dance? I mean, that'll be a dream. But don't mind me, I'm just blowing off steam. I swear we on the same team, still faded it seems. But once we open our eyes and let the scene be seen, whew, then we gleam. But we're still running to a point of no return, looking for Eden, with no idea where we're heading. We're just running. So blink.
Thank you for tuning in to the third installment of Mwen Menm Ek Sa. Of course, you can catch the next episode on Sunday, September 11th on the CDF Facebook page. Mwen Menm Ek Sa is brought to you by the St. Lucia National Youth Council in collaboration with the Cultural Development Foundation.
Division Creative.